Hey, how's it going? I'm sitting here thinking about how my day went, and everything is lining up really, really well for me to be able to achieve my goals and my dreams. So I'm sitting here looking over my notes, and it made me start to think about how I could really be at the greatest service possible to those that I work with. And the thing to do is to keep working. Keep working on myself. Keep working on the many things that will allow me to improve in order to become my greatest version. And every time I become that, I enjoy hitting the reset button to do it again. I have had so many reinventions of myself. So many. And I want to talk about that for a bit here. I'll tell you my story a little bit on my reinventions. I have been through an incredible amount of, I'll call it genres, phases, whatever you want to call it. And it started as a young kid. This is going to be kind of an integrated life story into the concept of identity discovery. Stick with me here. We're going to weave around a bit. As a young kid, I was very docile. I didn't fuss too much. I didn't cause too many problems. As far as I was told, I'm the kind of kid that slept through the night immediately. By the time I was 6 or 7 years old, I had several neighborhood friends, and it was fairly normal, except for I was in the middle of an abandonment episode. An abandonment season, a neglectful season. That's for another day. But one of those friends, he was a black kid, and I loved him. I loved him so much. And I ended up going down the path for about the next still 8 or 9 years, I suppose, of being in the black culture as a white kid. I got to know the black culture pretty well. And then it came to a head near the end of middle school. And I branched out on my own. It no longer fit who I was, how I was identifying. And I set out and became kind of a loner for a while. And the thread of being a loner, to some degree, has been part of the thread throughout the rest of my life. As somebody who's adventured life on his own, I have moved through many phases of different types of friend groups. Chameleon of sorts. I can weave in and out of different groups, and as I discovered that some of those things were probably trauma masking, trying to figure out where I could fit in, and then ultimately getting comfortable, and that became scary, so I would move on. I realized there was a skill set within this that gave me the ability to really navigate through life. So from the ages of 14 to 22, I weaved in and out of groups, and it about 17, I found my way into being an alcoholic and shifting into a world of organized drug trafficking, and learned a lot there. I went from that into being married, and turning my life completely around. From there, after getting married, from about the age of 23, 24, I set on a path of entrepreneurship. Being a street entrepreneur, or at least being subjected to it, led me to understand the way to make money was not necessarily having to do a 9-to-5 job. Going through that process has been excruciating for the last 12, 13 years of my life. But I have nonetheless been relentless in that pursuit. I have been studying every single angle that there could possibly be on how to become a better human being, how to become a leader, how to become somebody that is able to create and make it influence in this world. Excuse me. I learned leadership development during the time period where I was a general manager at U-Haul. I learned leadership development early at 19 or 20, being in management at Burger King. I seen that I had this thread of ability to kind of move in and out of whatever position I wanted to be in life. All of that being said, in a short synopsis, we'll talk more in detail over what skills I learned at each different phase and each different position. And this is a very, very condensed synopsis. And how all of those skills translate to today. But thinking today about who I am and how I identify as a leader, as a creative, as a developer, as a coach, I came to realize something. That I'm in a new phase of development. I'm in a new phase, a new genre of really becoming the person that I have always dreamed to be. All of the weaving in and out, helping host and run real estate investing meetings, which led me to be a public speaker, writing and authoring my first book, sitting and suffering over and over and over again through life events that I would just observe. One of the greatest talents I have is for my memory and being able to recall events. I'm terrible with names. I'm terrible with remembering data. But I can remember life as if I'm watching it back on film. Being able to do that and construct an algorithm in my mind of understanding human behavior, of which I have been studying since the age of 12. Another chunk of my life that I didn't even know I was living until I was in my 20s. From 12 to about 21 or 22, I didn't realize that I had been studying human behavior so innately. We can talk about that further, in how I ended up being in the position that I am today. My uncle was a pretty well-known psychotherapist. He was also a hypnotist. He was a family therapist. He did all kinds of things. And I remember very vividly being on the light rail in Seattle and him training my brain to pay attention to human behavior. Now, this is where we look at the thread of life. Trauma, somebody who comes from a traumatic or chaotic background will usually have a heavier emphasis in their brain for observation and to have a perception to heavily analyze major and micro movements in other people. I already had that being built into my brain from previous to 12. And then at 12 intentionally. And then definitely in combination as I moved into living in and amongst the drug world. Being able to take and utilize those skills on myself while paying attention to therapy modalities and psychology discussions and neurological science, neurology science, the world of spirituality and all of its many different forms of quantum physics and all of the things. I looked at also the thread of my timeline. I experienced this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and all of these things, regardless of how empowering or how damaging, were molding me into who I am now today and who I am continuing to become as a coach in business, a coach in recovery, a coach in healing and trauma, and a coach in being able to develop those that have been trying over and over and over again to find their way. I can take somebody's life and discover purpose. I can discover drive. I can discover identity. And so, as I've been producing and creating models and curriculum and structure, I've integrated all of my life's experience, all of my life's observation, all of my life's education into an extremely comprehensive step-by-step program that I can walk people through to become their elite version. And I have begun to reach a point where I'm beginning to no longer be in awe at my observations, like this last week. I could not help but to observe God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, confirming to me that I'm on the right path. I started taking action by posting on TikTok because there's no way for me to build out what I'm supposed to build out as a public influencer, as a public speaker, as a private coach, as a group coach, without me putting myself out there. And I knew that I needed to break whatever stigma was in my mind. And the moment I did it, things started to unravel. Just 2 weeks ago, I was still so uncertain. But the last 2 weeks have allowed me to see the confirmation that I have been working in the right direction. And today, looking at that notepad back there, it all came and elevated me to a new level. My heart was racing all day with excitement. I was able to map out the neurological expression that was happening, the mental expression that was happening, the emotional, the physiological, the spiritual. I was able to map it out and understand that I needed to cross a new barrier. We all have this level of homeostasis that keeps us centered, and when we start to exit it, our body does crazy things, our mind does crazy things to try to get us back into the cave for safety. And the cave being whatever our life is made of. And this week has been so intense, over and over and over and over, for the good and for the bad, but for the development. You see, sometimes we perceive the bad things as being a roadblock to our progression, when honestly, if we take a step back and look, they are actually steering us to keep us on the path. Sometimes we can allow events and circumstance to take precedent over the true direction that we are supposed to be taking. Unless we're able to see that those events are moving us towards the very version of us that we are supposed to become. Today is that day for me. How incredible. How absolutely brilliantly incredible. As you move through becoming who you are meant to be, you will go through moments of epiphany. Tomorrow's episode, I'm going to talk about epiphany. We're going to move through epiphany. We're going to move through paradigm shifts. We're going to move through identity shifts and changes, through genres and eras of who we are. And ultimately, we will move into an enlightened, aligned form of who we are meant to be. It might be when you are 20, it might be when you are 60, but if you pay attention and you do the work, as cliche as that sounds, and as much as I hate repeating it from all of the other business mentors and entrepreneurs that also have a public presence, the work is what needs to be done. Now, I can provide that work. You don't have to do it on your own. I can provide the frameworks, I can provide the models, I can provide the curriculum workflow from A to Z, K to 12. I can do that for you. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone like I did. And honestly, I didn't really do it alone. I did it supplemented by the world of personal development and self-help, mindset trainings, and the Tony Robbins and Ed Milet and all of the things. I supplemented all of that to build what I'm building now with Elite Outcome Academy. And I'm finally beginning to believe that I am becoming who I was meant to become. I am finally able to begin believing that all of the work I've done over the last 3.5 years was for naught. It was for something. Let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. All of the work that I've been doing for the last 3.5 years has been for something. It has mattered. And it is incredible. It is incredible. I look forward to this journey over the next year. I look forward to being a part of your lives if you've come back to these episodes. I am so excited. With that being said, thank you for being here. Become elite and find somebody to be kind to today.